We are so back, baby.
Hi, Zizaran here with another 3.26 starter, and this is a collab with Pohx, which we are of course bringing you. Of course it's Righteous Fire, you already know. Righteous Fire, if you don't know, wonderful ability. This is going to be one of the safest builds you can play. It is such a following, and just the amount of effort Pohx has put into this build makes it super safe. It's very good for both hardcore and softcore. Honestly, if you're having any like wrist issues or if you're like missing any limbs, this is a really non-button invasive build, so very easy to play, which really is a good selling point for a lot of people. Truly is a wonderful build. I hope you guys will enjoy all of this. But first, let's start with Pohx. Tell us a little bit what changed in this patch for Righteous Fire.
So we didn't really have too many changes in this patch. We did unfortunately receive a nerf, so our single target's going to be about 10 to 12% less, which is not very ideal for an RF build. However, you are going to have a stronger spike of damage in the campaign or survivability of your choosing because golems received buffs across the board. So this takes pretty much negates out the damage nerf. Then another really nice change is that scepters have been hopefully much easier to roll. They messed around with mod weightings on scepters, so hopefully these items you find in the campaign will be easier to craft. More importantly, they'll be more impactful when you pick them up.
And if you've never played Righteous Fire before, here's a little video of Pohx telling you how the build plays.
During the leveling of this build, we're going to be using a couple of different skills. Number one is going to be Flame Wall combined with your Rolling Magma. You simply place the Flame Wall down and shoot the Rolling Magma in for bonus damage. Later on in Act 2, you're going to get access to Righteous Fire that you can activate to kill mobs around you. As you get higher level, I'd recommend replacing the Flame Wall in Act 3 for Flammability, as this way you don't have to press as many buttons, and Flammability will minus target's fire resistance, granting your Righteous Fire and your single target skills more damage. Later on, you'll be swapping to Fire Trap. Now, as you get higher level with this build, you're going to go ahead and change your single target in your curse. We're no longer going to be using things like Rolling Magma or Flammability. Instead, we've opted out to replace those with Fire Trap and Punishment. But when you're in maps, your main focus is your Righteous Fire. This character, for example, is in T14 maps with only a 4-link for my Righteous Fire. The simple gameplay loop is shield charge through monsters, apply your curse, and kind of just move on from pack to pack. It is all in good fun, but do remember Righteous Fire doesn't have the highest single target, so when you have a character like this who's running on 4 links, you can expect the map bosses to be pretty tanky. Now thankfully with the PoB, we do have variants that go much higher on the damage, but remember that stuff does get more expensive. So here's going to be an example of a T14 boss just running on humble 4 links. This is a character that I have made recently. We haven't actually gotten to play it too much. Here you can see an example of basically the all-time lowest damage you're going to have on the build, as this one doesn't have an Elder Helm. Occasionally, don't mind what's going on there, you will get a lucky explode from your Hinekora on Chieftain, and that explode can quite literally almost one-shot bosses.
And as always, if you consider these build guides useful, please consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot. We are using Path of Building for this build. It's going to be extremely important that you have this to follow along, and this has loadouts as well. So as normal, Pohx has put like a lot of effort into making sure it's like step by step, easy to follow. And these loadouts, what they do if you're new to them is they sync up the trees, the skills, and the items. But yeah, everything is very step by step. Same here in these skill sets, the items, everything. Very easy to follow. It's hard to get lost with this build. Honestly, it is definitely the most thorough build guide that exists in Path of Exile. And it's insane. So I always love seeing how much effort Pohx puts into these. Here as well, we have like one with growing block based and one with fan the flames. The difference here is that you can get your ignite proliferation, which is the way the ignite spreads, either with a cluster jewel or with the glove implicit. And you can see that Pohx has put loads of effort into like the teal text on items, which is like or different color text on other items, but with extra notes with things to be aware of. Another good thing about this build is that it comes online fast and it's relatively cheap. So if you look here in the glowing block base setup, you can see that it has 2.5 million DPS and the gear is not particularly insane. All of this is very doable, and it doesn't really at any point early rely on any crazy uniques, so it is pretty reliable to get going on solo self-on. Obviously, a Cloak of Flame is going to be a little bit tricky to get, but yeah, very easy build to get going on. So, Pohx, what are some easy mistakes to make on this build?
One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is when you're going to the first Fire Master, you're around level 18. They look at it and it states regenerate 1 life per second for each 1% uncapped fire resistance. People oftentimes confuse this and think it's not very good, but it's actually mandatory for the build. That right there means if you have 100 fire resistance, you get 100 life regen per second. This is mandatory for being able to sustain your Righteous Fire. Another potential mistake is players find their Righteous Fire deactivating and they don't know why. Oftentimes you accidentally have a flask with remove ignite and burning, and Righteous Fire is burning. You can have one of these flasks if you want, just to, turn it off if you're scared, but for the most part, you don't really need it.
And another thing that's easy to mess up as well is spiritual aid. A lot of people don't fully know how this functions, but what it effectively allows us to do is use a fear essence to create a scepter, and that minion damage will be the same as increased damage or increased fire damage. So this will directly increase your Righteous Fire damage. So it's such a good node for early gear. That way you don't need to look for like a scepter with a 90 fire damage. You can just slap a deafening or shrieking or even screaming Essence of Fear on a scepter and you already have a good weapon. So in this build for bandits, Pohx recommends Kratin for the movement speed. It gets you better clear, etc. But if you don't care that much about your speed, you can kill all of them for an extra passive point. The Pantheon is Brian King and then Ralakesh. Now, in my opinion, a huge selling point of this build is the Pohx wiki. It is super, super in-depth, so well made. It actually has basically guides for Inquisitor, Chieftain, and Juggernaut. So no matter what you're wondering about, like why Frostblink, things like that, you can check pretty much everything here. It is such a thoroughly well-made thing, and if for some reason it isn't in the wiki, Pohx is also maining this himself, so you're obviously able to get help in his chat, either from him or other people there. That's where all the Righteous Fire people hang out. It's like a bit of a cult, but a very burning one. It's lit. But yeah, this website, super well done, really, really cool. So make sure you check it out. It's pohx.net. Now, Pohx actually has everything from like super budget and actually all the way to like expensive gear, including pretty heavy hitting gear. So whether you decide that this is something you only want to play for a week or two, or you actually want to play it the entire season and really, really invest into it, this really covers you for most of that. Tell me some pros and cons about the build.
One of the really nice things about Righteous Fire is it's got fast map clear on a budget. You just need your ignite proliferation. A lot of people get confused with this because they see low damage in the path of building, but most of your clear comes from your actual Hinakora explosion, thus allowing you to cheaply scale your way into endgame content. The build is also extremely tanky. It runs 90 maximum res. Honestly, by the time you get to red maps, if you're in a trade league, if you're in SSF, it can take a little bit longer, but you can still easily scale that up. You also get physical damage taken as endurance charges, an abundance of life regen, and block cap. Another nice thing is it's got limited button presses, and when you're standing still, you ignore all forms of elemental resistance, and you can simply get by the entire game by stacking fire res and chaos res. No reason for that pesky cold or lightning. Some of the cons that come with the build is it's got low single target. There's not too much of a way around it. The average player is not going to get past 2 to 4 million. For some people, that's enough. For a lot of blasters, they definitely are looking for more. That doesn't mean you still can't use it as an excellent mapper. It's got a slow Act 1 due to getting RF in Act 2, and Marauder's just not the best caster in Act 1. It's not too bad, but it's definitely on the slow side. It's got limited scaling. Other builds can definitely scale better. However, RF can do all the content if you gear for it, but I would never recommend players try to chase Ubers, as that's very high on the budget for consistent clears. And one of the last things is it does take time to scale into tier 17 maps. There are cheaper ways to scale that my build guide will have spin-offs on, such as Hateful Accuser versions, but in general, it's not the best T17 farmer, especially if that's your goal on Leaguestarter.
Guys, that was the Pohx RF guide. Make sure you check him out on Twitch. He's going to be streaming this build every day, and he's put so much love and effort into the build, so go give him some back. Hope you guys enjoy these collabs, and I hope you have a great league start. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sub if you liked the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.